Radio Ballads is a 3-year project that explores stories of labour and who cares for who and in what way. It brings together artists with community groups, social workers, and government services. So the project actually owes its name to the original Radio Ballads. So these were radio plays that were revolutionary at the time. They were broadcast on the BBC between 1957 and 64. They were 8-hour-long documentaries that were produced by a broadcaster called Charles Parker, who worked alongside 2 radical folk singers, Ewan McCall and Peggy Seeger.
The New Talent Culture is a curatorial project that's based at the heart of the council in Barking and Dagenham, and it's a project that's exploring connections between art and more broadly creativity and social care services. And we started working with Radio Ballads 3 years ago, and that happened as a result of me and Amal, Khalaf, getting together, where I was talking about the role that cultural institutions could play in public services, and Amal was already developing this amazing idea for Radio Ballads, and we could see that we would have lots in common if we were to join forces.
This idea of listening differently and emphatically creating a space where we understand listening and witnessing as a political act, as well as being a creative process or a relational process, and thinking about what that space is and what that difference is, what happens when you're able to create platforms or a workshop space where you have officers speaking with informal carers, people that are just maybe not naming the work they're doing as work.
It's about sound, it's about voice, it's about the idea that certain communities, particularly in the late 50s, were not heard on kind of national radio. So this idea of doing something with the lives, experiences, ideas, perspectives of people that didn't normally get to share them on a kind of mass platform was really important to me, and I suppose in many ways is what I'm trying to do with the work that I make.
A few of my women, when they came, they said they're just coming to be spectators, they're coming to just watch what we do, and they weren't going to take part. You know, so far to even cross their arms, say, I'm not going to even speak, I'm not going to sing. And it's really surprised me the way they've taken part in the emotions, using their body to show their emotions, singing. They've been amazing. They surprised me every step of the way through this project. And this is one of the first times, especially during lockdown, that they've been so engaged in taking part in the activities that we do.
I was reflecting about stories particularly, and the stories that we carry and hold. And just personally, I've worked in the broad sphere of social work for my entire career. And I think those stories become part of us. It's part of their story, but it becomes part of my story too, because I hold those stories.
So for the last 2.5 years, I've been working on this commission, bringing together really a series of stories about what support means and what is a support structure. And the key anchor we've used, which is also the title of the work, is that of the raft. So thinking about this symbol as a literal thing, but also in a very metaphorical way to think about what are the essential things which keep us afloat, that take us and enable us to get from one place to another. And that, of course, the raft is a symbol of what is most precarious in what keeps us afloat, but thinking of it not just as that of a precarious thing, but of an essential thing.
You know, it's a very beautiful thing to just be able to creatively express yourself. It's the most wonderful thing ever.
An important part of our workshop was also connecting with people very far away. I had previously been working with a group called Project Wellbeing a rehabilitation group as part of an interfaith homeless shelter in Idaho, and we at one point were very much in dialogue and connecting with people from that group. How did you find that as an experience?
It was very touching, actually, just meeting these people, and my aura of courage was very handy in that situation because I, talking to people I don't know, but it was really nice, and it's just nice to know that although you can be a bit scared of meeting new people at first, like meeting the people in Idaho, they have more in common than you think would at first think. Then it was just really eye-opening.
So for me, using my voice is about empowerment. It's about speaking up, taking up space, being unapologetic of who I am and where I've been. For me, it means also giving courage to others to have a voice and to say it's okay.
So The Body Blow is a film that was made through long-term collaboration with people with lived experience of asbestos exposure, LASAG, who are the London Asbestos Awareness Support Groups, social workers, end-of-life carers, legal professionals and medical professionals. And it's a film that explores ideas of acceptable bodily risk, what risk means in the context of our care, our work and our health.
There's different levels of the impact, because I think one of the impacts is coming together as a group and having space to actually reflect and critically look at our role and the impact it's having on the individuals we work with, and have that space to really delve into that emotional sphere that comes up for us as well in that work, which you wouldn't have a natural scheduled in group creative project like that. I think you brought something new in, whereas if I was in a group of social workers, we'd probably be very heavy laden on what's the process, what's the legal terminology, but you've brought in something that's kind of opened up a new way of thinking and a new way of reaching out to people from other agencies and really understanding how we all piece together for this one person in the middle, because I think it adds a new level of reflection, and with social work, reflection is so important to make sure that you're serving this individual and their values.
You did make me think that yes, what LASAG do and what the people that work on LASAG do is, I suppose, has a big impact for those individuals that we do it with. But I've also been aware of how it's impacted on you. I have noticed that, and it impacts on all of us. Anyone that works, does. I suppose I've had years of finding ways for me to deal with that.
Yeah, so my name is Sonia Boyce. I'm an artist, and I have made an artwork for the Radio Ballads project called Yes, I Hear You. In the end, I interviewed about 8 people, those who are survivors. All of them were incredibly brave to come forward, talk to a complete stranger for this project. And then there was a whole series of workshops with people who work in social care and kind of therapeutic care. So for me, that was my starting point of thinking there's a community of people having this kind of sense of a virtual panel, but of real people, but just kind of who might be able to take care, but also be critical in a way that is going to help people move forward. And this was really integral to the process of making the work. So workshops to kind of look at the transcripts, which were all anonymised, which was very, very important. I was particularly struck by something that you talked about in terms of this question of being in 2 spaces.
It's almost like a palimpsest of listening, just all these different kinds of listening for both the explicit, but for the traces. And what seemed to happen when we came together for that review was that we had the transcript, which was the written form of what had been voice, and we didn't necessarily know when there'd been a pause or an overlap because it wasn't transcribed in that particular way, but each of us could kind of feel it. And it may not have been that we felt, intuit when there'd been a pause. We may not have always got it right, as it were. I've never seen those women again, you know, apart from Sonia, you know, and yet I had an intense experience and teaching me to be a better teacher, to listen in the classroom, but also to be a better psychotherapist too, from listening to those women. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And it is radio, if you like.
So this work has the potential to completely transform the way that happens. There's life story work where social workers have a responsibility to help young people document their lives because they've been in care and there's no family framework to do that. There is scope for us to completely transform the way that happens.
When we started to build this partnership with Barking and Dagenham, I was especially excited because of the strong industrial and rebellious history that this borough holds. And I was really excited to think about whose voices or which workers today are the ones that we're not really hearing from, and how could we create a framework or a series of projects which look to the original radio ballads and reimagine how we could tell those stories today. These new radio ballads have created spaces to reflect on, to listen to witness and process experiences of mental health, domestic abuse, terminal illness, grief, and end-of-life care, as well as create spaces to reflect on collective care, interdependence, and healing. We've been working with questions such as, how can artistic processes support systemic change? What resources do we need in moments of struggle? What keeps us connected? What do we need to repair? And how do we listen, and how do we hold each other?